Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt. On April 29th, the year of the plague 2020, it is Wednesday. I'm so glad you are with me to review the day's news, the news you need, the analysis you must have. Let me start with the fact that we've got 1,040,000 cases of the virus in the United States. 59,000 people have died of COVID related illnesses or COVID alone. You know, the world's got 7.8 billion people, right? The United States accounts for 4.4% of its population. If we've got 1 million cases in the United States and we've been socially distancing for 4 or 5 weeks, can you imagine what the world has? The statistics don't matter because China lies, Iran lies, and a lot of the most populated places in the world are not doing great measurement. There's got to be 25 million cases in the world. And we are moving fast on every front. Best piece of news this morning: the race for the coronavirus vaccine accelerates as Pfizer says U.S. testing to begin next week. That's in the Wall Street Journal. On Monday, Oxford University researchers said their vaccine candidate could be available for emergency use as early as in September. I spent yesterday talking to a number of different people about various clinical trials. The therapeutics, which means treat the disease, not prevent it, are extraordinarily numerous and in being run by the greatest hospitals. Never in the world, never has science focused on one thing this way. So I'm an optimist, but I am also a realist about the cost of this. And it's increasingly clear to me that we've bought ourselves time for the hospitals to get ready. We've bought ourselves time for the therapeutics to get better. We bought ourselves time to know what the last ditch thing is, which is hydroxychloroquine, and that's last ditch. We bought ourselves time to go through the first round of therapeutics and find out what doesn't work. We bought ourselves time to develop best practices for ICUs and for isolation. We bought ourselves time to get factories ready, but we're going to have to reopen. The world can't afford this. We're all going to do Sweden. Eventually, we're all going to do Sweden. Holman Jenkins, there are 2 great columns today. 2 great columns. One by me. On Trump, which is over at the Washington Post, which has already collected. It went up last night around 5 o'clock. So it's been, 13 hours. It's already got 1,100 comments. Now, I don't read comments, but I'm sure they're all supportive. Like 100% supportive. I don't read comments. But it talks about the 2 great truths about Donald Trump. One, he is, was, and will remain the best interview in America. So he, therefore, should abandon these press briefings, which are just ambushes. It's like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday couldn't survive this many ambushes. They couldn't go to the OK Corral. It's more like the OK Corral, not an ambush, a showdown. But it's 1 against, 30, and then there are 20 who are old-fashioned, straight-up reporters like Steve Holland. And so my column is about, I'd go back to his greatest strength, which is the one-on-one interview. He dominated 2015 and 2016 doing one-on-one interviews. Yes, he won the debates, but he also won the interviews, whether it was with me or Anderson Cooper or whoever he sat down with. He won the interviews. He always wins the interviews. So we got to bring in one reporter at a time. Start with the old pros like Steve Holland. And he's not old. Steve's my age, but he's been doing it a long time. He's a straight-up news reporter. Mark Knoller. They're just straight-up news reporters. And then you can bring in lefties, right? The young lady from New York Magazine, whom yesterday I erroneously said was 29. My mistake. Olivia Nuzzi is 27. So my mistake, and I apologize. I misread the Wikipedia entry. She's 27. But I would let her come in. Put that in my column. Doesn't matter if it's Brett Baer or Dana Bash or Jim Acosta or even Nuzzi. We said Nuzzy in Ohio when I went to school with Nuzzies, but I would let them all come in one at a time and do an interview and let the president win. Because the second part of my column is that America needs a cheerleader right now. It needs the developer that is Donald Trump's essential character. He's a developer. And if you want to read that, it's on the front page at the top of WashingtonPost.com. Let me give you the bad news. Story this morning in the New York Times. Airborne coronavirus detected in Wuhan hospitals. Now, I caution, while this was published in the journal Nature, very respected journal. It is nevertheless developed by PRC scientists, which means that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, might well have altered the data or made them lie with a gun to their head. Just understand, it's the CCP. But the New York Times writes, Kenneth Chang, adding to growing evidence that the novel coronavirus can spread through air, scientists have identified genetic markers of the virus in airborne droplets, many with diameters smaller than 1/10,000th of an inch. That had been previously demonstrated in laboratory experiments, but now Chinese scientists studying real-world conditions report that they captured tiny droplets containing the genetic markers of the virus from the air in 2 hospitals in Wuhan, China, where the outbreak started. Their findings were published Monday in the journal Nature. It remains unknown if the virus in the samples they collected was infectious, but droplets that small, which are expelled by breathing and talking, can remain aloft and be inhaled by others. Quote, those are going to stay in the air floating around for at least 2 hours, said Lindsay Marr, a professor of civil and environmental engineering at Virginia Tech, who is not involved with the Nature paper. It strongly suggests that there is potential for airborne transmission. That's really bad news. But I bring you the news, good news and bad news. Really bad news, CEOs on earnings calls. It's earnings season. And Ford's CEO, Jim Hackett, did an earnings call yesterday. There is no future, he said. I read from the British Telegraph this morning. Ford boss Jim Hackett warned, quote, there is no future. What a terrible thing to say. Of course there's a future. As his results call took a bizarre philosophical turn. Reporting the car maker's results late on Tuesday night, Mr. Hackett said Ford's first quarter sales fell by a fifth. The chief executive described current times as a paradox. The nature of times brings to mind the notion of paradox. Mr. Hackett said, never let CEOs go philosopher king on you. And I like to think of the definition of a paradox as 2 truths that compete. That's not the definition of a paradox. He described the first truth as people's safety, saying the communities you live in and amazingly all the humans you interact with, their safety guarantees your safety. The second truth, there is no future. All right, stick to making cars, Mr. Hackett. Really, stick to making cars. The other, how about that, Dwayne? You want to go home now? Or you already left? There is no future.
I'm still not worried about it.
I know you aren't. I mean,
I think I had it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there is no future. The world, it's not about you. It's about the world. There is no future. I'm telling you.
So what you're telling me is Disneyland's not opening up anytime soon.
That's what I'm telling you. Disneyland, there is no future. The Ford CEO said that. You know, everybody on the assembly line go home. What a thing to say. I'm sure he's trying to say, I can't give you any prediction on how many cars we're going to sell. But you know what? When you're trying to say, I can't give you any prediction on how many cars we're going to sell, say, I can't give you any prediction on how many cars we're going to sell. Don't say there is no future.
That's that starts getting into Mad Max territory.
Yeah, it is just Mad Max. It is so weird. Okay, the other column is by Holman Jenkins. Little lukewarm coffee there. Holman Jenkins in the Wall Street Journal has a great story on the media versus flatten the curve. I joked the other day that the media doesn't do multivariate, but it wasn't a joke. Sometimes it imposes a hard cap on what we can achieve with public policy when the press can't fulfill its necessary communication function. And he's right. He says, please, if you are a journalist reporting on these matters, virus matters, and you can't understand flatten the curve as a multivariate proposition, leave the profession. You are what economists call a negative marginal product employee. Your non-participation would add value. Your participation subtracts it. And by the way, so many people in the White House press corps are negative marginal product employees of the nation's press because multivariate means there are a lot of moving parts in this story and they all impact each other. And there is no simple solution to a complex problem, and declaring that there is no future is not the answer. The answer is me. I am the answer, Hugh Hewitt. So listen to all 3 hours every day, whether on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, at HughHewitt.com, on Town Hall TV. Whatever you do, follow me on Twitter. Listen to me. I know what's going on. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.